Here I go, here I go, here I go. Yeah, here I go, here I go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Take Podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Burleson, of course. And in today's episode, I got two special guests on this podcast. Luke Pustay, a local MMA fighter here in Orlando, and then also my boy, Randy Silver. I appreciate you guys hopping on, dude. And thanks for letting us be in the Octagon. We're the home of MMA fighters, of course.
Yes.
Let me ask you this question. We still call it an Octagon if it's not the UFC, or is it just called the
This one is still an Octagon, I believe, right? I've not counted, but I think it's 8. I'm pretty sure. But yes, this one's an Octagon. There are some that are like hexagons and stuff, but this is an Octagon.
Well, this is sweet. I appreciate you hopping on, dude. So, as you know, Saturday, UFC 300.
Yeah.
That was the craziest card I've ever seen, dude. And we'll start out with the craziest fight I've ever seen, the BMF belt, Gaethje Holloway. Last second, dude. A knockout, lights out, just got flatlined in the middle of the canvas. And Holloway said, you get in the middle of the octagon, let's trade shots for the last 10 seconds. And that's what the BMF belt's for, right? I mean, you're trying to show who's the baddest of the bad. And those two guys are a perfect example of that. And
Sure.
Holloway is.
And I think, obviously Holloway's the A side of that because what happened. But I think like Gaethje, he doesn't get enough credit for, accepting the challenge. And, he could have done what most people would have done in that situation and, took the L. He was probably losing that fight anyways and kind of backed off, took his foot off the gas and just took the L. But he stood there and, props to him for accepting that challenge and trying to get the win and going out on a shield like that. I mean, you expect nothing less from Gaethje. That's just the type of guy.
He broke his nose in the first round, too.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Right on the money. And, at first I was like, why is he reacting like that? And then when you should see the replay of the heel kick to the nose, like you said, it was clear. That was just a time strike, perfectly executed.
And then the second round, he had eye focus, not in one eye, in both eyes.
Yeah, dude.
His face was probably just seeing.
I don't know how he could see. Like, I guarantee his vision was super blurry during that entire fight.
As a fighter, let's ask you this question. Have you broken your nose before in a fight?
Yeah, not in a fight, no. And sparring, I actually have had nose surgery, which the doctor at the time was like, why are you doing this? You're just going to break it again. But I was like, I was at that age where I was on my parents' really good insurance still. And I was like, I don't want to, I don't want to, do it. Sure enough, I get the surgery, which was actually way more painful than I anticipated. And then maybe 2 months later, I broke my nose.
And so they were right about you breaking it.
It's still broken, so I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'll wait till I'm done hard sparring to get that fixed. But yeah, it's broken again.
Call up then. In your training, in fights, when you feel it dislodged, how do you get through that with one, mentally the pain, but two, just physically being able to breathe when someone's trying to punch you?
No, that's a good question. I mean, so just a quick background. I kind of started with wrestling, but when I got into MMA, I was in a pretty much strictly boxing gym. So you were getting popped in the nose a lot. And there were times where it was like, I think I broke my nose, but then it wasn't broken. But then there's times where it's like, yeah, that is broken. Like, it's just your nose swells up, your face is getting swollen up. And like you said, you can't breathe out of it at all. This nostril is like 98% closed. So
oh my gosh.
That's my good one.
Golly.
How do you get drug tested?
Yeah.
That's insane. Oh my gosh.
It's pretty bad.
Jeez.
Anymore, I mean, obviously it's healed up, but it's just the septum is blocking the air.
Oh my gosh. So when you since you said you haven't broken your nose in an actual fight, I don't know if you're Gaethje with the eye pokes and the broken nose and you're in the last round. I mean, what else can you really do when you're getting pieced up like that for the entire fight? I mean,
right. And then if you're Max Holloway, you're probably thinking, what do I have to do to put this guy out? Found out.
He found out literally at the last second, dude.
But yeah, that was insane. It was just, I was watching it and I had bet the fight to end by decision.
Oh,
that happened.
That takes yeah.
Funny, but it was enough to be like, this can't.
That takes some guts to bet on decision.
Yeah.
Because now the BMF belt, every single time it's been on the line, it's ended by knockout.
Yeah, they're just, they were just two such tough dudes that, I thought that was a smart play. And it was looking kind of smart at that point until the last second.
And I give Dana White credit after the fight in this press conference. He said, that fight is why we created this belt. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
And people are like, that fight happened because of the belt and the fans won.
He said it's straight out of a movie, bro.
Yeah, I watched that movie.
It sucked the life out of you too. Like everyone who was watching it, like I was drained for the last 2 fights. Like my voice was just completely gone, dude.
Pay attention to anything else after that. But yeah, I mean, the coolest part of it to me is obviously you see the clock going down, but Max knew right away when he hit him, he got the knockout. He landed and then immediately started screaming. And there's like, it's not a lot of time. There was probably 2 seconds between him landing that and then falling, but it took Mark Goddard a second, the referee, to even be like, what just happened?
His audio came out.
Yeah.
Yelling.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Max kind of knew right away. I think even before it landed, he probably knew that was going to put the lights out, and it did.
And he didn't even have to do that. He won the fight before he even had to do that. Like, that's the thing. That's what makes it so much better is that he just...
The BMF, in my opinion, they're both like
Exactly.
people they are. So that was beautiful matchmaking, and that's what you want for UFC 300. I mean, especially the way the prices are now for pay-per-view. You get his worth.
And then Max Holloway got like a $600K bonus for that. He got the big bucks.
Definitely deserves that.
What do you think's next for Max Holloway, guys? Is he going to go fight for the title against Ilia Topuria, or is he going to stay in lightweight and fight for a little bit? What do you think he's going to do?
So I'll start with that. Dana White, after the fights, announced for the lightweight belt, Islam versus Dustin in June. Max wants to fight. And who's ready? Ilya's ready. So he's going to fight Ilya at featherweight. His only loss ever at featherweight was against Volk. So I think he wants the title back, and he wants to prove, I'm the best featherweight of all time.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, like, before that fight, before the BMF, I was kind of like, Ilya and Max, I don't necessarily want to see it. Ilya just kind of ran through Volk.
Yeah, dude, that was crazy.
If he did that to Volk, what's he going to do to Max? But, I mean, I'm a huge Max Holloway fan, so I don't want to sound disrespectful there. But after seeing that, I'm so excited for that fight.
Exactly. It put him on another level, you know?
Yeah. So I'm really excited to see it now. I think Ilya's reaction to that,
He's like, I don't want to fight that guy now.
makes it a lot more interesting, too. They're talking about doing it in Spain, which would be amazing.
Bernabeu.
Why? Yeah,
that'd be dope.
Yeah, so...
And if you don't know where that is, Bernabeu is Real Madrid Stadium, so it'd be an outdoor game. However, they
Packed house.
did the stadium, so there's a roof on it. Dana White has always said his big thing is he doesn't like outdoor stadiums because you can't control the weather. And it's an octagon. There's no roof on the octagon, and it would ruin the whole experience. So the fact that there's a roof on the stadium, 70,000 people can pack in and watch a UFC fight.
That would be amazing.
So for Gaethje, where does he go from here? Because he knocked out Dustin Poirier before this, and then he gets knocked out by Holloway. He's kind of had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in such a quick amount of time.
Yeah, that's a great question. To be honest, I haven't put too much thought into that, actually. I think he's going to probably just continue to look for these types of fights where it's, good for the fans. It's his style of fight. He's not going to want to go out there and fight an Islam that's like going to try to take him down and kind of have, I'm a wrestler, so I can say this a boring wrestling fight. But he wants those type of fights that Max Holloway is going to bring, a BMF style fight.
Charles
That would make a lot of sense. Yeah, that would make
that does.
Fight. That does make sense. That would be like another BMF type of fight.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, that would, because Charles is not afraid to stand up.
He's now in the Dustin territory where he's a big enough name. He doesn't need a title. Yes, he had a BMF on the line, but people are going to watch him regardless. And he could headline a card with no title.
Yeah, and then who knows what happens with Connor and Chandler and Connor and Gaethje.
Yeah, we're gonna circle back around to those fights in a second. But you brought up headlining. The headliner was Jamal Hill, Alex Pereira. That was a quick fight. I think Alex Pereira showed in this fight he is the most dangerous man in the entire UFC. He does not have to. He barely has to move his left hand, and he just catches the chin of any guy. It's just very intimidating. I thought it was funny when he pushed Herb Dean away when he got kicked in the groin, and then he just gets so angry and just flatlines Jamal Hill. That was pretty scary stuff, dude.
Awesome. But there's been conversations a lot this week about, people are saying that even he's higher on the GOAT list than Khabib. That's like a big thing going on Twitter. And, you know, I've seen some people make some compelling arguments for that. It's pretty crazy. His run he's had, it's only like, like I said, 3.5 years.
And he wants to fight heavyweight now.
Yeah. Gosh, that would be so fun.
Well, let me if you don't know.
Oh my God.
He's had 12 pro MMA fights. He entered the UFC after 4 fights when he was 4-0. He won the 185 title, 205 title.
Yeah, that's insane,
title.
Dude.
Beat 5 former UFC champions, and he's headlined MSG and UFC 300.
Yeah, 5 former champions and 8 fights.
Izzy Adesanya.
And he flatlined Strickland.
Yeah.
That shows you how well Izzy fought that one fight.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and Strickland is a huge star now. So, like back then, you know, people knew who he was, but I think even casuals know Sean Strickland now. So, if you even look at like the star power of people who split out, former champion, Strickland.
His resume is stacked.
Yeah, it's interesting. And like you said, if he goes up to heavyweight, gosh, that would be
Him and John?
That would be crazy.
If he's ever been a 3-time champion or a 3-weight class.
I think if anybody can do it, it's Alex. I think he can.
Power translates. And like
Anywhere.
They showed a video that he did a punching machine at the UFC PI. He punches harder than Francis Ngannou. He broke the record.
Dude.
Crazy.
Francis. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Was it the Ford Explorer? Was the amount of power Francis was bringing? I mean, he topped that somehow. But I thought Jamal Hill looked good until he got knocked out. I mean, honestly, the southpaw, I thought that was going to kind of stumble Alex a little bit.
Yeah, and he's got that freakishly weird power too, where it doesn't even look like he's throwing that hard, but it puts people out. So I was definitely expecting a lot better of a fight there, but I would be lying if I was like, thank God it didn't go. I'm just like tired.
Yeah.
Jamal came back from the Achilles tear in basically 9 months. Like as a fighter, how do you mentally get over that to get back in with a killer and know that your body's okay for you to fight?
Yeah, that's a great question. Luckily, knock on wood, that's not wood, but I haven't had a serious injury like that. One of my teammates just recovered from an ACL tear, and I can't remember how much time. It's something crazy.
It's usually like a year-long recovery, and
Fought like a year.
9 months.
it was 9 months.
It was not. He earned during International Fight Week playing basketball at DC in July.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and an Achilles tear is serious. So
Yeah, that's like,
I haven't had to deal with that adversity, luckily, but I always give props to people that are, you know, they don't lull around in the injury and they are ready to get back in there. Props to him for sure.
and Alex had a broken toe in that fight too.
Crazy. Because I mean, it might not sound like much, but it can change everything about the way you move. You're defending takedowns. I mean, Jamal Hill is not going to take him down, but I do deal with, right after I was having to deal with major injuries, I hurt my foot or my ankle like the beginning of every fight camp. It's like something
that's
that I always
crazy.
deal with. We all have a joke here. It's like, oh, I must have had a fight contract that I just signed because the first 2 weeks I'll either get my toes in the cage, roll my ankle or something like that. So
Why is it? That's such a common thing in MMA. Like when you're training through an entire camp for one moment and then you just have an injury and you still fight through it. How do you even do that?
yeah, I mean, for
Money.
for Herrera, I mean, he even told Dana White, like, this is such a huge opportunity. I'm not going to let it go over a baby toe. And he made the right call there. And you can't, I mean, you know how many new fans were probably watching this past weekend and then they saw that
The
knockout.
pay-per-view
and
points
then
that he
the
does.
little thing he did at the end.
Yeah, dude, I've never seen Prajeda show that much emotion before in my life.
These moments and keeping fans on your side. So I think he clearly made the right decision.
Let me ask you this: as a fighter, if you're going to break a toe in your foot, what's the best toe to break?
I would say probably one of not your pinky toe, not your big toe, probably the second one to your pinky toe, because you don't want your outside toes, you know, being, oh gosh, people are getting a free show. You don't want your outside toes to be injured because, you know, that's when you're putting your weight on, you're displacing your weight and might throw you off, especially if you're trying to take someone down and you're driving or trying to.
Yeah, you can't drive power through your legs or anything like that.
I'm not a foot expert, but I would think it'd be like the second to your pinky toe, I would guess.
But you know the struggle of not being able to take someone down and having that that liability there, because it is a big liability. And does it affect your kicking as well? I mean, I'm sure it would, right?
Yeah, so I don't kick very much either. It definitely could. I have kicked knees before, very hard, and that's
man,
not fun.
So brutal.
And then, when you're kicking, you're thinking, am I going to hurt my foot again? So, yeah, it's definitely in the back of your mind.
Because you got so many nerves right here that you just got to kill before you go into training. And I see it all the time with these guys.
You don't want to kick with your foot, that's for sure. If you're watching, you don't want to kick with your foot. Sometimes it happens, and it's not fun.
So we can
take it back to Alex for a second. Yeah. I think the coolest part is a sub storyline that we talked about. His trainer, one of his best friends, Glover Teixeira, lost to Yuri for the title. And then Yuri got hurt. Title was vacant. Lost to Jamal Hill to try to get the title. And Alex beat Yuri for the title at 205 and beat Jamal at 205 to defend it.
Yeah.
Getting revenge for his trainer.
Yeah, that is a great storyline. And Glover is an amazing
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, amazing guy as well. And that's just a super cool story. And Yuri, that fight.
Yeah, that fight was... That was a great performance.
The night before
that was a good performance. Yeah, I agree.
You just think about almost every fight. This fight card is amazing.
The first fight on the prelim was between two former champions, Figueiredo. I mean, dude, that's the first fight?
Yeah.
I mean, you're kidding right now.
Yeah.
But the first time ever, two Chinese fighters have fought. That was insane. Yeah, she got choked out in the first round.
That was wild.
I think Zhang Weili is the real deal for sure.
Yeah.
But Yan she's good.
Yeah.
She's a really good fighter. I was impressed with that.
Yeah, and she showed a lot of heart to be put to sleep like that and get up, get to your stool. You want to be in the fight clearly because she almost put her on skates there a few times and almost put the lights out. That was a very
So then again, to ask you as a fighter to give the fans perspective, you're out cold, you get woken up, and now you have 60 seconds to compose yourself and fight again. What's your body feeling like? What's your mind feel like? How do you get yourself in the zone to be ready to go for that next round?
So for someone like her, she just seems like she's super disciplined. I think they would have had to rip her out of that cage before, a doctor would have had to say, "You're not doing this." I think she's got that heart. There's definitely times where I've had fights where my first round didn't go the way I want to. That's the closest thing I could have to compare to that. I've never been put to sleep in the fight and then had to go back. But, there's times where my first round, I got taken to me a little bit and I'm on the stool. I'm like, okay, what adjustments do we have to make? Come back. And then I win the second and I win the third. I've had a few fights like that. And you always want to just remember that was one round, stay composed, and then you got two more to go. You might be down one, but you can win these next two and still win the fight. And I definitely think she had that mindset of, look, I lost that first round. I almost got put to sleep. Let's not get put there again.
And she did.
Yeah.
But she survived.
I think it's just wild that she got put to sleep like that. And then when she stood up, she looked like she had no idea where she even was. And I'm like, is this fight going to be able to continue? Is there going to be a doctor stoppage or anything like that? But she fought through it.
Did a great job of talking her to her as well. Yeah, Uriah Faber and Team Alpha Male. There was something a little bit weird. I haven't heard anything since the fight night, but they were
talking about the smelling salts.
I could give her something to wake her up.
So I read it was
isn't that
ice up her nose because it wakes you up as a coldness?
Oh, okay.
Supposedly you can't use smelling salts.
Yeah, you cannot. That's a no-no, right?
Back and putting ice up her nose to wake her up.
Okay.
That's so crazy, though.
You're being what is going on? I think Joe Rogan was having a heart attack about it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to wake somebody up for her to go back and fight. I mean, that's so incredibly dangerous.
There was an incident back in the day with Greg Hardy. I'm sure you remember this, where they actually had an inhaler in the cage and gave him.
Oh, and that was illegal. That's right. I do remember that. Yeah.
So I was worried for a second we were going to have something like that. Because I had no idea what was going on. It did look like they were putting something up her nose, but again, I'm glad it was just the ice, like you said.
And they give her credit. She lost round 2. Round 3, she looked like once the champ, Wei Li, was tired out, was about to win it. She was credit to Wei Li.
Oh, my goodness. It was just such a good fight for the country of China.
Yeah.
I mean, it brought the Chinese people to become MMA fans at that point. I mean, I that was the biggest headline with that fight was
in the press conference after, a Chinese reporter was there, and he told Dana White that there were 9 billion views of that fight on Twitter X, whatever. And it was the number one trending thing in China. And it's the first time UFC had ever trended.
Yeah, it was like they trended for 2 days.
That's crazy.
2 days in China.
Yeah,
that's insane.
I know that's a market the UFC is definitely targeting with that. They added a performance institute over there, and you're seeing a lot of Chinese fighters just come up the ranks. A lot of people are going over to Team Alpha Male, Song Yadong's there as well. So I think you're going to see a lot more Chinese fighters rise than there already are.
Yeah, and they're fun to watch, man. I mean, they're just ruthless. I mean, they do not care.
Yeah, they are ready to take it to you. They're not giving up.
Exactly. So another fight in the women's UFC was Kayla Harrison made her UFC debut from the PFL. I mean, she came in there and just put it to Holly Holm, an absolute legend of the sport. But what do you think? I heard Amanda Nunes talk, if Kayla Harrison gets the belt, that could possibly happen. That would be insane. What was your take on Harrison's performance?
I think Holly Holm, and she would have made a really wrong call in the first round of trying to grapple with Kayla.
Yeah.
2-time, not 1 time, 2-time Olympic gold medalist in the judo. You don't take her to the ground and fight. And then she tried to flip Kayla, and Kayla was like, "You're putting me on top?" Cool. Yeah. Second round, same thing happened. So I think Kayla looked good. The weight cut destroyed her. And she was on Ariel's podcast and said, it was tough, that last pound. I'm sure you could talk about that. Is always the hardest. You saw her. She looked really beat when she weighed in, but then she came through and she won the fight. And she said she's ready to fight for a title.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I talked to people leading up to that fight, it seemed like it was either one side or the other, and there was nobody in between. Everybody thought Harrison was going to destroy her, or Holly Holm was going to destroy her, and that she was super overrated. And I think that, she showed that it was.
Yeah, she's not overrated.
Not overrated.
No.
I was a bit worried with the weight cut, seeing her on the scale, not the.
Yeah, she cut a good amount of weight for that fight. She cut a lot.
Like 30. She started around 180, and she said
that's
I can't
crazy.
160. She had to cut to 135.
Good grief! That cannot be good for your body to cut that amount of weight. It just can't.
No, but she's trying to be at the highest level, and like you said, if she gets Amanda Nunes' attention, that would be amazing. I don't know why they want to just fight at 145.
Oh my gosh!
I would love to see that fight. I think we all would, and if that's what's going to take to get Amanda,
get her back. I mean, she's arguably the go to the women's division just in general in the UFC, and
it'll be better for that weight class as well. We need to get some more drama involved in there, and I think
exactly
a huge storyline for that weight.
Yeah, you got to give Kayla credit. She left the PFL, $1 million on the table, fighting at 145, and would have had a cush life to do this to herself, to try to be the best and prove that she's not just an Olympic best, PFL best, and mixed martial arts best.
And she said it was a risk. I mean, as an MMA fighter, I'm sure you know this. Sometimes you got to take risks and go all in on something you're very unsure about, and that's exactly what she did for this fight.
I think it's going to pay off in the long run. Like you said, she turned down that big paycheck, that $1 million PFL money. But the UFC, hate it or love it, that's where that's where the eyes are.
Yes, exactly.
So while you're turning down that $1 million paycheck, it's going to, help her in the long run.
Yeah, it'll help her brand grow a little bit.
Her brand, I think it's definitely the right choice.
So I can't believe we're still talking about UFC 300. Aljamain Sterling made his featherweight debut. I mean, how many fights? This is the greatest card of all time. I mean, this is insane. Just how many former champions? There was 12 former champions on this card. I mean, and Aljamain was one of them.
Made it look easy, and that was a kind of a sad fight for me.
10 minutes of ground control.
Obsessed with Calvin Cato. That's my biggest competition is Calvin. So we had to make
His face stayed pretty at least.
Yeah, he didn't really take too much damage. So I was rooting for Cato, and we were both pretty upset with that performance. And one of the locals here that comments on MMA a lot, one of my old opponents actually, his name's Lou. I saw him in the comments talking about how Aljo's wrestling is just going to dominate the fight, and
it did. I mean, 10 minutes of ground control time is nuts.
But I thought the size disadvantage was going to be a bigger factor. He looked like He's been in that weight class forever.
When he gets you wrapped up in that triangle, that leg triangle, I mean, it's almost impossible to get out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you have someone 10 minutes on the ground?
Yeah.
That's just pure domination, dude.
She trains with some beast as well, and that was very impressive of Aljamain.
I think for Sterling, like, he's a champion. He has nothing left to prove. For him to want to go up and say, hey, become a 2-belt champion like Alex, this shows the character he has. And the fans cheered him finally, which he deserved.
Yeah, I agree. He gets a lot of hate, and I actually love Aljamain Sterling's character. You know, when he lost to O'Malley, you know, he could have demanded the rematch and whined, and it was a lucky shot. And he gave him his props. You know, I think people kind of took out whatever happened with him and Peter Yan getting kneed in the head.
Yeah, that's why I think he gets a lot of hate, honestly.
Out on him as if it was his fault. There's nothing he could do about it, you know, and I think his character is like amazing. Actually, he's a really good like bar setter.
Yeah, exactly. And he looked good at 145. He didn't look like he had to cut too much weight. Like people were. Yeah, exactly. He looked strong still, and he still was fast, which was one thing when you're going up in weight, you're worried about if your speed's gonna stay the same.
But then again, he talked about cutting the 135 was just really tough on his body too.
Mm-hmm.
So he probably feels like his career is extended now having to do 145.
Could be right. I mean, he looked so good there. I would like to see someone, you know, at 45 that has a better ground game than Kattar maybe, and just see if he could look as dominant as he did there. But if that's how he's going to look against everybody, that's a big problem in that weight class. Yeah,
I mean, that fight's a possibility now. I mean,
he might be bigger than Volk. That'd be interesting to see.
He could probably manhandle Volk on the ground, in my opinion. I mean, the thing is, you got to get him on the ground because Volk is, against T-City, Brian Ortega. I mean, that man came out of 3 triangle chokes.
And he's gone up against Islam, which is a tough task.
Yeah, Islam's just on another level, which we'll transition into the fights Dana announced after UFC 300. We got Conor and Chandler. We all knew that fight was going to happen, but now it's official, International Fight Week. Conor McGregor he's still, you know, the biggest star MMA's ever had. He's doing movies. Did you guys watch Roadhouse?
I did.
Yeah. What'd you guys think of it?
I liked it.
It wasn't going to be an Academy Award movie.
Yeah.
Enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah, it was just like, you know, like a Fast and the Furious movie.
Yeah, it was good action. It was good action.
That was cool, and I thought Conor's character was the best.
Himself.
Part of the movie. He was the best part of the movie. Anytime he was on the screen, it was fun. It was like, yeah, he's not going to be like, you know, on Schindler's List or like a good movie, but it was his character was basically, you said.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's interesting, this Chandler fight. You know, Chandler, he lost to Poirier, and then before that, he just heel kicked Ferguson to wherever he is now. But I think that's an interesting fight. I think the question marks everyone's wondering is, how's Conor going to look? He hasn't fought in 3 years. He has that leg injury, which is really hard to come back from. And we've seen Silva come back from a similar leg injury. Chris Weidman, he came back from that this year. So with that leg injury, do you think Conor's going to look sharp, or do you think he's going to look a little rusty when he comes back?
It's been so much time that I think he's had plenty of time to heal and train, and, you know, ring rust is the only thing I could think of. But, you know, Chandler's the type of forward pressured fighter that I don't think there's going to be any like feeling out. I think it's just going to be going at it, and at that point there's no ring rust. It's just let's bang. And,
exactly.
You know, I can kind of am a Conor stan, so I think he's going to probably win that fight. But again, I'm very biased. I think it's going to be a crazy brawl, and I think he's going to catch him with one of those left hands and put him out.
And I wonder if his kickboxing, because that's what Prime McGregor was really known for, was those spinning kicks.
Yeah, but like
they'll be fighting at 170.
Not 185. Conor was saying, 185. Like, no, that's not going to happen, dude.
Yeah, I think he was just joking.
Yeah, I think he was trolling.
He was like doing that whole like you'll do what you're told kind of thing.
I thought it was serious for a second there, though.
Yeah,
like 185.
Like 185.
He's jacked. He was walking around at like 195, recovering for this injury, and I think obviously it's must-see TV.
As Chandler, you talked about the heel kick. He doesn't really do calf kicks though. So maybe something, of course, you'd be smart to target in the game. You talk about like why that hurts so bad when you kick right here. But it would be
He's got that metal leg now, though. You got to be careful.
But Chandler's gonna brawl you.
Yeah, yeah. Those calf kicks are definitely a newer part of the game, and I've fallen victim to them, unfortunately. One of my fights I didn't get finished with them, but I got dropped with them pretty hard, and
It's just sneaky, right?
it is, and they add up.
It's like a Charlie horse on your calf where you just can't stand anymore.
Yeah, so I fought actually Amanda Nunes' wrestling coach, and he's also like a pro boxer. He's very well rounded, and he was just throughout the fight landing these calf kicks, which are odd because this is the first time I've fought someone shorter than me. He was like an inch or two shorter than me, which is odd. I've never had that. People can't typically kick very well on me because I am shorter than them, and I get the takedown kind of because that leg, they're basically giving me a takedown with him. Since he's a little bit shorter, not only could he kick me and be effective because he's a big wrestler, but he was landing a calf kick on me, which is, if I stand up, it's a little weird to think that someone can get underneath a calf. And he was just landing it throughout the fight, and the third round, one landed, and it was just like, oh, I can't put my weight on this. And then I was trying to stand up, and I couldn't. There was only 40 seconds left of the fight. But I couldn't get back up on it, and he wasn't really letting me up either. So he was kind of open me kicking my leg. So unfortunately, I have fallen victim to those calf kicks.
And what was it like the next day or 2 days? Did you walk or?
Yeah, I could walk. I needed help getting up and getting out of the cage. And then that day is limping, and for the next 2 or 3 days I was limping. I had nerve damage. I had
man.
So that's something that we see the fight UFC 300. Oh my God, it was so cool. Gaethje's got to deal with a broken nose and whatever with his face.
Yeah, and Holloway was walking too, which was insane, dude. Yeah. He was walking after the fight.
Yeah.
How? That's incredible, bro. Because essentially, if I ask this question, do you think getting kicked there so many times is your legs have fallen asleep essentially, or it doesn't feel like that?
So it's not it's so hard to explain. I just could not put weight on it because it was just so painful. So it's asleep, but it's just it's literally I had to hobble on more.
God, so I don't even know how you because you're hobbling, you're pretty much on one foot.
Yeah.
How do you even fight through that?
It's crazy. I don't know. I think about that a lot too. How is it that some people are able to just get through that and I wasn't? I know that there's some conditioning things that I've been working on since then to make sure it doesn't happen again. But there's certain ways to condition your legs to where that doesn't happen. But the calves are so hard to condition. When you condition, as fighters, we condition our legs all the time, where you get kicked up to here. That's way easier to condition than your calf. Your calf is actually kind of small.
Yeah.
To this area.
Yeah, to the thigh, yeah.
Kick. And if you got to work the next day or if you got to run the next day, you don't want to condition your calf. That's when they're making all these new pads. They have see those pads over there, the pads you'd hold for Muay Thai. They're actually making them now for your calves, so your training partners can practice kicking that as hard as they can. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's getting your body adapted and getting used to the feeling of it.
Such a bigger part of the game that people are creating new tools to help either A, condition, or B, you throwing it properly.
Yeah, because I think as of recently, I think you guys can both attest to this. Just watching MMA in general. That's a big part of people's game plans now. They start off with the calf kick and then they work their way up to more significant strikes, which I think is, because the calf kick is it's not you take an insane amount of damage, but you're kind of working it slowly.
But then if you can check the calf kick, you hurt their foot really bad.
Yeah, very bad. Yeah. So, if you listen to Joe Rogan call a fight, he talks about them all the time. It's almost in my mind how much he talks about them. But it has really came up into the game the past 5 years. It seems like it's a big staple.
Exactly. I think it's very interesting. It's changing the whole complex system of MMA and how you look at a fighter and what to attack. And I think another fight that we'll kind of transition to is Poirier-Makhachev. Those two guys like to kick as well. And I think it'll be interesting because Dustin, he's never won a title shot. He fought Khabib, and now he's fighting his protege, Islam.
Well, just to clarify,
so
interim title. So
But that doesn't count as a UFC title.
he won't say it counts, but in the record book, he's in.
Yeah.
I don't count interim titles as championship fights. I just can't. I mean, what do you think about that?
I would still count it, especially if you like were the interim champ and then you win the unified belt. But
Dustin didn't do that.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be fair.
He would say he's not the champ. That's the technical.
yeah, his resume would say he's a champ, an interim.
I mean, he's a championship caliber fighter, which I think will make this Islam Makhachev fight interesting.
Yeah.
Because in his last fight, Poirier was such an underdog against Benat Saint Denis. Like, everyone thought he was going to get destroyed in that fight, and then he comes in there and just knocks him out. I think that says a lot about Poirier. He got knocked out, and then comes back and knocks somebody else out.
That was a crazy fight too.
Yeah. Like, that was
If
insane.
Law had staff coming in before, you talked about as a fighter having staff and how that can hurt you in your training.
Oh gosh, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, it's too prominent, and you realize just because not only is it affecting you, but you don't want to give it to anybody else in your gym. And for people that don't know, it's a very contagious skin infection. And here, if you have staff, you're not coming to the gym. Like, you're not getting close. Especially if we got fights coming up, you're staying away from our fighters. You're staying at home. You're getting on whatever you need to get done to get that fixed. So it shuts down a lot of things because you don't want to pass it. Like, a lot of, even in the UFC, you've got teams of fighters fighting on the same night a lot of times. Like,
American top team.
yeah, so it's like, if one guy that's fighting that night has staff and then gives it to the rest of the team, then that's a big problem because now everybody can't train. So it is something you got to work through and take your showers. But yeah, it is. And then you get on antibiotics. That affects everything. So it's a big deal. It's a lot bigger than just I got a skin infection.
And if you have a chance, type in Benoit Saint Denis on Google, staph infection, and you'll see he had it on his forehead, and it was clear as day. So
That's just
kudos to him
so crazy.
through it the week up.
Yeah, that's nasty.
Yeah, that is pretty nasty. And I think, when Charles had a cut in his forehead when he was supposed to fight Islam before that, he wasn't allowed to fight either because of an open wound and stuff like that.
Yeah, you see that happen a lot too.
Yeah, it kinda limits you.
More behind the scenes I'd go into leading up to a fight that it's really almost not a miracle, but it's when you get all the way to a fight, if you're not injured or anything happens like that, you're extremely happy. Everybody goes into a fight with some sort of injury, some sort of setback, and that's just all part of the process that you've got to deal with. It's more rare to go into a fight that everything went according to plan.
Exactly. So when you look at Poirier and Makhachev, who are you looking to?
I would love for Dustin to win.
I guillotine.
I don't think
And his coach told him not to do it, and he still did it anyways.
don't think he will, but if he does, that would be amazing. I mean, I love Dustin, and I was watching that last fight at a bar downtown. I got a USA chant going after.
Yeah.
That was fun.
USA.
So hopefully we'll be getting another USA chant, and I would love to see that happen. It's definitely an interesting fight. We'll see. I'm interested to see what the difference is between his fight with Makhachev and Khabib is. Because I want to see if
I think
that's similar, or if it's going to be, is Makhachev going to handle more than Khabib did?
I think it'll be interesting in that aspect because I think Makhachev, Khabib's an all-time great.
Yeah.
But Makhachev's a better striker than Khabib was, and he can kick, he can punch. I think he's a little bit more well-rounded. Khabib's obviously known for his wrestling and his grappling. He's a little bit stronger in that area, but I think Islam just being able to stand on his feet. I mean, his last fight against Volk, who knocks out Alexander Volkanovski like that? That's just so... I was like, wow. That is so tough for a guy. Volkanovski's so good at what he does. It's just man, Islam's he's just that good. He's on another level.
We talked about Cody Rhodes finishing his story in the WWE. Dustin finished his story in the
I wanted Roman Reigns to win that fight.
That's funny.
I think Dustin, I would like to see him win, but I just don't think he will. I think Islam's just too good. And this is Islam's first title defense. Somebody actually in his weight class though, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah. And we'll see, like you kind of mentioned about the striking. Maybe he will make the mistake of like wanting to strike with Dustin, because Dustin's not the guy you want to strike with, because he will drown you. And then once he sees you're hurt, he might not finish you with a punch. He might snatch that geese, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Or he might just take you down and start pounding you out. So, you know, he can get people in deep waters with his striking. So if Islam was smart, he wouldn't try to get into that fault. Harry Jadov could be fucking.
If we talked about injuries, Islam's coming off of Ramadan. You know, he'll have a full fight camp. He should be good. But you never know how potentially fasting like that every day can affect you.
So getting into kind of your career and what you got going on. So as a fighter, I couldn't see myself picking MMA as a path in my life where I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to go in an octagon and get kicked and punched in the face.
Yeah.
But what really like got you into MMA?
Yeah, so I wrestled for the most part, like growing up, and you know, I wrestled just kind of in high school, and I wasn't good enough to be like, oh, I'm gonna go to the Olympics and wrestle. And then even in college, the lightest weight class is 125. So I could have wrestled for some NAIA schools and stuff, but I chose to, you know, stay in Florida, stay near my family, and start fighting. That was really the next step, was to start fighting. I had my first amateur fight like 3 months after I graduated high school, and just never stopped. It's just, you know, it's a great way to continue the wrestling, continue the jiu-jitsu, and just continue my growth as a martial artist. And it's definitely fun to still be able to compete. And I've been doing it now for 12 years, and it's just so much fun. Every day you come in here and you get to learn something new.
So let me ask you this question. MMA is probably the fastest growing sport since 2000.
Yeah.
Before that, people still wrestled, still did jiu-jitsu, still fought mixed martial arts. What did they do back then if there wasn't MMA as a professional sport to go into?
Yeah, that's a great question. There wasn't much. I mean, jiu-jitsu wasn't even that popular like back then, so there wasn't much for them to do. You know, I don't know, maybe getting them bar fights. But,
Practice there.
it's just now growing to where, you know, you see schools all over the place. But, you know, I talked to my coach, Mike Webeck here. He talks about how he used to have to travel all over to try to even get to another gym to practice with other people. He would have to like get cassette tapes and instructionals and show his friends and stuff. So it's crazy to see what it's grown into, even since I started back, you know, in 2011. 2011. The amount of skill level that has came up from here. It used to be like I could take an amateur fight and it'd be fine. Now it's like, if I see some of these people, the amateur fights, and they would have been pro fighters when I first, like, that I would be looking up to when I first levels getting like this, because you've got kids that are like training this now.
Their whole life now.
There's just more academies popping up and everything.
And we've got killers in our kids class that, you know, I feel bad for some of these like people that are gonna grow up with them, because they're gonna be some beast.
I told my girlfriend I'd rather our kids start wrestling jiu-jitsu, MMA when they're 3-4 versus playing baseball, basketball, traditional sports.
Yeah, I was just mentioning that to your friend over there. Like, I wish I didn't play baseball. I loved baseball growing up and stuff, but I was never good enough to be in the MLB and stuff. If I could have been wrestling, you know, 10 years earlier, I would have, you know, that would have been something else, or jiu-jitsu 10 years earlier, because this is much like anything. But I feel like in combat sports, the more you do it, like, just you see the evolution so much better than other sports. Like, I could have played baseball for another 20 years and probably still been terrible. I would have loved it, but I wouldn't have gotten any better. And I feel like jiu-jitsu is something where it's like you get put in bad situations and you only get better, where it's like in baseball, I get put bad in situations, I'm striking out, still striking out, still striking out. And you know, it's not like that here.
And what I love about it, it's such a team sport. At the end of the day, respectfully, is individualistic. The effort you put in is what you get out of it. Baseball, you can do baseball drills, hitting drills, pitching drills. At the end of the day, you have to hit against
exactly. I think
pitch somebody. Most of the octagon's closed is you versus that person.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
More.
Exactly. I think baseball is like one of the more individual team sports that we have. But yeah, I mean, it's different. And talking about your MMA career and everything like that, what fighters inspired you to be where you're at right now?
Yeah, so I mean, the main one I always talk about is Uriah Faber, just because being a smaller guy, he was like always the pioneer of the smaller guys. Plus, he got the eyes on the division. You know what I mean? He was a fun, exciting person, and and you know, people used to only be lightweight in UFC at 155, and you know there wouldn't be a flyweight now without Uriah having the 35 and the 45. So he kind of added an additional 3 or 4 weight classes, which in turn had the women eventually come to the UFC. So in my eyes, he kind of added like 6 weight divisions to the UFC, almost single-handedly by him. You know, we might not have known about Jose Aldo without Uriah Faber. So Uriah was one that I grew up, you know, idolizing. Some other ones I used to love watching. Gray Maynard, that's an old school guy.
Very old school.
You know, that type of like bully style, like I'm gonna try to beat you up and wrestle you at the same time, is fun.
And even Demetrius Johnson, I mean, I think he's one guy that everyone looks at and is like, he pretty much put that division on notice.
Mighty Mouse, though, even without Uriah Faber again. So,
yeah,
Mighty
exactly.
Mouse.
And Dana White tried to run him out of the UFC at one point.
Yeah,
And he's still fighting like at a high level over in Asia.
Yeah.
I mean, he is fighting at a high level.
Bad deal. They kind of, I mean, Ben Askren, I do love you, but if we traded Demetrius Johnson for Ben Askren, which is,
But does Jorge Masvidal become who he is if that doesn't happen?
No, the fastest knockout ever, just a brutal knee. Oh my gosh. I love how you brought that. I wasn't going to ask you this, but I really did want to ask you, who are you taking in the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson?
Yeah, it's so fun. I think I'm going to take Jake Paul, unfortunately, as much as I'd like Mike Tyson to win. But you just can't escape that. I was like in the dentist and, you know, they're like putting needles in my mouth. And they're like, so do you think so with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson? Dude, you've got a giant needle in my mouth. I want to talk about Jake Paul.
Yeah.
Say the right answer or else.
That's what everyone says. I think Jake Paul, I mean, it's a 30-year age difference. And I mean, Mike's still Mike, but everyone says power is the last thing to go. And he's still got the power. And he's still ducking and weaving at you like that. I'm scared, bro. I don't care.
Nothing more for him to knock him out with 16-ounce gloves and a headgear on. I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll see.
But honestly, that fight is big. If you don't know, the undercard fight they just announced, Amanda Serrano.
Yes, the rematch of Katie Taylor. Yeah.
The first women's fight ever to headline Madison Square Garden. Rematch is happening on the undercard co-main event. Make sure you watch that.
Dude, that fight was sick,
Are
dude.
you talking about the Musk fight too, or is that a joke?
They were talking about Musk Zuckerberg, like, what was it?
Match, right?
Bro, it was going to be MMA, but I don't think it's going to happen. But Dana was like entertaining it for a while, which would have been sick.
Just thinking too much. You got it.
I honestly,
And they were suing each other, too.
I wasn't sure if it was a joke or not, but I saw it was going to be on the Mike Tyson card, so I wasn't sure if that's true or not.
That would be insane.
Okay.
That would be crazy.
Official.
That would be amazing.
Oh
I
my
would actually
gosh.
watch it more for that than the big Jake Paul fight.
I just think it's like weird when Jake Paul, I'm not trying to get into Jake Paul too much, but he says he wants to be a world champion. And then he goes and fights Mike Tyson, who hasn't fought a pro bout. And they're still like trying to figure out if it's going to be an exhibition or if it's going to be a pro fight.
Yeah, it's just a circus, but I guess we're all going to watch, right?
250 million people have a chance to watch the circuit.
And it's going to be on Netflix, not even pay-per-view. You just got to have Netflix for that thing. I don't know. So one more question before we wrap this up. What does being a fighter mean to you?
I think being a fighter is like always challenging yourself to grow. You know, I'm always challenging myself to get better every day and not be stagnant in life. You know, I'm coming in here, I'm training late as days that I don't want to. You know, I come in here, I put in the work, and it just teaches you discipline about life. And, you know, things are not going to always go your way. You just got to keep pushing through, just like a fight. You know, if you get a loss, you're still going to fight. You're going to come through. You're going to get a win and eventually. And just keep pushing and challenging yourself. And that's what I think the main thing about fighting is just bettering yourself every day. And that's something I want to continue to do. as long as I can.
Yeah, as long as you can is the key. Staying healthy. Well, I think, Randy, you got anything else you want to add before we close this up?
Answer. Thank you for having us, Jack.
No, yeah, thank you so much.
No, thank you guys for coming on. This has been so sick in the octagon, dude. I mean, this guy made this all happen. Us being sitting in here and everything like that.
Definitely have to do it again. Maybe the next big card we can kind of give our pre-fight predictions. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, predictions is when people start to go, hey, do you really know what you're talking about? Like, you're going to get this wrong. Or
301 is 2 weeks away in Brazil.
Yeah, that's
yeah, that's a big deal. Yeah, it's in Brazil. Yeah, Pantoja's a beast, man.
Aldo's coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Aldo is on that card. Yeah.
That'll be a good one. We'll see how Alberg does against Pantoja. It'll be interesting to see.
That'll be sick. The UFC keeps delivering all these top tier fights. I'm joined by Randy Silver, Luke Pustay. I'll tune in for him because hopefully he'll be fighting soon. So
I'll definitely update you guys.
yeah, we'll see if he's fighting soon. But I'm your host, Jackson Burleson. You guys have been listening to another episode of the Take Podcast. Peace out.
Talk to me, baby. Talk to me nice. I'm from another world, baby, yeah. Broadway paradise. They think I'm way too cold, cause I put my